Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
The third edition of the state rankings on the ease of doing business is out. Andhra Pradesh is in pole position as the best state to do business in India. Its neighbour Telangana comes in a close second. 3 BJP-ruled states, that's Haryana, Jharkhand and Gujarat, complete the top 5. Poll-bound Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, along with Chhattisgarh and Karnataka, find themselves in the top 10. Some of India's most industrialised states, like Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu, find themselves outside the top 10. But they have scored over 90 and are listed as achievers by the government. We also have states that are listed as fast movers. These include states like Himachal Pradesh, Assam, Bihar. There's a long category of states in the aspirers category as well. Joining us now to discuss the rankings is the Secretary at the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, Ramesh Abhishek. Mr. Abhishek, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. What is unique about this year's survey is the fact that it has given weightage to actual ground reports, feedback from the private sector, feedback from industry on what reforms have actually translated into. So implementation has been the focus of this survey. Can you explain to us what was the sample size, how many people did you survey, what makes this survey different from the previous years on account of this?
You know, Shereen, first 2 years in 2015 and 2016, the department, along with World Bank, focused on getting the reforms done by the state governments, having the regulations in place, having easier policies, processes, and laws, and so on. But then we found that unless we check with the people on the ground whether the reforms are being felt by them, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Because sometimes people said that the single window is not working, so what's the point? So what we did that we identified 78 out of 372 reforms last year, and we thought that we'll take public feedback. So the sample was we were supposed to speak to almost 9,000 people. An independent agency was selected by the World Bank team in Delhi, and we got the users of the reforms from all the states, which numbered more than 50,000. So out of this 50,000, about 6,000 users were randomly selected through they were using whatever program they had, and their agency sent out teams to the states to speak to them. So most of these feedback has been taken face to face, and very detailed survey has been done. And many states, of course, did not send any user data. So we could do it only in 23 states. But I think this feedback is making a big difference. And the state governments were agreed with us
states
that
didn't send the user data,
should be the criteria of evaluation. State banks, the state governments also were happy to agree with us that user feedback should be taken. State governments, excuse me. And they shared with us all this information, and they did a tremendous outreach program with the users in the state. They reached out to industry, they reached out to the business leaders to see if their reforms are working on the ground. So this has been a great experience. And what we are thinking that from next year, or the next round of reforms, we would like to get the entire evaluation done of the state reforms through feedback. This time it was about 20%. We would like to do 100% next time.
You know, Ms. Abhishek, you said that 23 states shared with you user feedback, and there were some states that didn't. Can you tell us which states didn't share with you user feedback?
As a matter of fact, if you see the rankings that we have put out today, there are a lot of states that get 0 on feedback. So you can conclude from there as to which are the states that did not share any user data.
Okay, so states like Daman, Diu, Tripura, Dadar Nagar Haveli, Puducherry, Nagaland, Chandigarh, Mizoram. Okay, yeah. So I'm looking at the feedback score, sir, and I can see that these states have got 0 on the feedback score. Arunachal, Sikkim, Lakshadweep, Meghalaya. Is that accurate? So these are the states that didn't send you the user feedback?
See, yes, exactly. Wherever we got feedback or user data and the reforms were claimed by the states, we have taken their feedback. So you can conclude that most of the others did not send any user data at all.
Okay.
And also,
sir,
Shereen, if I may also
columns,
clarify, many of these states actually did not even claim many of the reforms.
Okay, they didn't even claim any of the reforms. But if I'm looking at the reform evidence score and I look at the feedback score, sir, the gap between what the government's claim has been implemented by way of reforms and the user feedback, the gap is quite significant. For instance, in Andhra Pradesh, which is the top state, 99.73% is the reform evidence score. The feedback score is 86.5%. Telangana, 100% reform evidence score, 83.95% feedback score. And then when I start to look at the list below that, I mean, states like Uttarakhand, UP, Maharashtra claim that their reform evidence score is 98%, 97%, 96%, but their feedback score is 60%, 66%, 50% in the case of Maharashtra. So that means that state governments claim that reforms have been put in place, but the feedback seems to suggest a very different story.
Actually, that was the purpose, Shereen, of the feedback, that whatever claims may be there on doing reforms, we have to check with people on the ground. So that check has been done, and it will be a kind of an eye-opener for those where the feedback score has been poor or low. And I'm sure they will do better to make users feel the reforms. The same thing happened to us when the World Bank Doing Business report was being done in 2016. We started taking a lot of feedback from the users of our reforms, even for the World Bank report overall for the country. And that was very helpful to us. Instead of the World Bank trying to get feedback every June, July, we started getting feedback every week, every month. And we started making our reforms and making improvements, all the departments. So I think process of continuous feedback from the users is very important. That is a lesson. And either you validate your reforms through that, or you learn where you need to improve further. And what are the gaps between your reforms and the implementation on the ground. So I think this exercise is very helpful in identifying these gaps.
Okay, where are you seeing the most gaps, sir? And again, if I look at the feedback score, because if I look at the reform evidence score, at least till the top 20, most states are either in the high 90s or in the early 90s, starting from 99.73 for Andhra Pradesh, which is the #1 state, down to about Tamil Nadu, which comes in at about 95.93%, which comes in at number 15. But if I look at the feedback score, the feedback goes from 86% to 43%. Where are you seeing the most gaps when it comes to reforms not being implemented on the ground?
See, so far the reforms implemented score is concerned, since this is the 3rd year of doing these reforms, the states have also learned. They have tried to improve their regulations, practices, online systems. So on the reforms, there has been a huge improvement. We have done so much of capacity building. The stronger states have helped the weaker states. So all that has happened a lot. That's why their reforms claimed score has been pretty good, and it has consistently improved in the last 3 years. But the feedback is a different story. See, many states have done a lot of work on reaching out to the beneficiaries or the users of the system. So they have done a lot of work on that. So wherever they have reached out to the beneficiaries or the users, and they have tried to see that the reforms are felt on the ground, the results are also good. So I think it's basically a lesson that all of us, whether central government or state governments, we should be continuously talking to the users. Continuous feedback should be taken, and corrective action should be taken on the feedback that we get.
Sir.
I think that is a lesson for everyone.
No, that I get, but are there any specific areas of concern? For instance, land registration has perennially been a problem. Construction permits has been a problem in the past. I mean, can you take me through, in the 2017 survey, which were the areas that come up as areas of red flags of concern?
Since we have just released the main data on reform evaluation, we will be sharing indicator-wise data of the various feedback that we have taken, that we will be sharing, and then we will know the more granular details of the feedback and in which area the feedback has been good, in which area feedback needs to improve. We'll be sharing the data maybe tomorrow.
I know you have limited time, sir, so let me ask you a quick two more questions. Is there disappointment that, industrial states like Maharashtra have now fallen below the top 10? Maharashtra coming in at number 13 with a reform evidence score of 97% and a feedback score of just about 50%. Tamil Nadu, again, dropping to number 15, 95% on the reform evidence score, 43.9% on the feedback score. Is there disappointment that these large industrial states are dropping in the rankings?
I think the message that we get from these rankings is that the gap between the top states are very, very low. Sometimes there's a gap of 2 or 3% and you have 10, 12 states within that 2-3%. I will look at the tremendous efforts that have been made by the states to improve their business environment. I think the effort has been tremendous in the last 3 years, and that is the takeaway that we see. On the feedback, we all need to improve. As government departments, as public authorities, we all need to improve our feedback system. So this lesson is there for everyone, not only states, but even for central government. So I will actually take the positives in this exercise, that people have made great effort. They have made a lot of very good reforms. They have learned from each other. They have consolidated their reforms, and on feedback, some of them need to improve, but then everyone needs to improve.
No, I agree with you that everybody needs to improve, sir. But, I come back again to my question that while you may be ticking the boxes on each of these parameters that get categorized as a new reform, I'm purely going by the feedback score. And the feedback score is telling you an entirely different story. It's giving you a very different picture. What seems to be the problem then? Is it an issue of communication? Is it a problem that, various line ministries at individual state governments haven't been able to, in fact, take those reforms forward? What seems to be the issue for why we are seeing this big gap, and it is a big gap, between the reform evidence score and the feedback score? And I'll end with that.
I think, Shereen, all the states will need to do that analysis, whether it is a communication problem or the reforms have actually not felt on the ground, and what can be the strategy of outreach, how do you improve your communication. Some states like Jharkhand made a presentation today in that event about how they have reached out to stakeholders. I'm sure many other states have also reached out to stakeholders quite effectively. So I think this is a lesson. We would like to work with the states and also try to help them find out whether communication needs to improve or whether reforms themselves need to improve on the ground. We will all do that exercise together, and we'll try to come up with solutions. So for us, it's a basically learning exercise. We have learned, states have learned that they need to improve their feedback and they need to work more with the stakeholders. I think that is a lesson, and I'm sure we all will benefit from that.
My final question, sir. Preparation for the country ranking on the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index. We got to number 100, and of course the aspiration is to get to 50. What more have we seen being executed through the course of this year in order for us to be able to move higher?
No, we have done a lot of reforms this year, Shereen, on World Bank DB report as well. We have already submitted our claims. Their team has already come here, and they have talked to the stakeholders. But then they take feedback on phone, on email, so that process is on. So we will hear from them, their preliminary feedback maybe next month. And the results will come out in October. But we have done a lot of reforms, and we are very optimistic that we will again make some improvement in our rank.
Mr. Abhishek, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18 to explain to us what is different about the state ranking this year and what can be done to bridge the gap between the reform evidence score and the feedback score. The feedback score for the very first time being weighed into, being factored into the state rankings. Appreciate your time here on CNBC TV 18. Well, joining us now are the representatives from 4 of the 6 top-performing states in the government's Ease of Doing Business rankings. Let's go across to Kutumba Rao, the Vice Chairman of the Andhra Pradesh Planning Board, Jayesh Ranjan, Industry Secretary of Telangana, Sudhir Tripathi, the Chief Secretary of Jharkhand, and Ajay Singh, the Chief Secretary of Chhattisgarh. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the show. Mr. Rao, let me start by asking you, congratulations to the state of Andhra Pradesh. You're at number 1. Your reform evidence score is of 99.73%, and your feedback score is 86.5%, and that has in fact enabled you to edge higher above Telangana to bag the number 1 spot. Can you tell me, sir, what have been the key changes that you have been able to bring about by way of governance in the state this year, in 2017 specifically, and what has that translated into, both in terms of investment from domestic conglomerates, domestic companies, as well as foreign direct investment?
Good evening, Shereen, and thanks for your congratulations. And it is because of the hard work put up by all our industry department officials and other officials of related departments also, and the vision of Chief Minister Nara Chandrababu Naidu that are being translated into practically. One of the key important factor, I think, which has tilted the ranking towards our favor was we enacted an act, AP Public Service Delivery Guarantee Act 2017. This was enacted with a clear commitment on timelines for delivery for over 60 services to businesses. This act also entails penalties for concerned authority for defaulting on service delivery timelines. And this particular act has brought in a dramatic change among the performance of the officials also, because facilitation with the investors has been much faster, and investors were also pretty happy on every count. Whenever they had faced any difficulty, it was being resolved in a jiffy. And second point, even the single desk portal has been tweaked in such a manner that the integrated online applications for our, say, infrastructure corporation or factories department or fire department, everything has been tweaked in such a manner. This was treated as a good practice as early as in 2016 also by DIPP. But the whole single desk portal process, the tweaking of it and the way it has been conducted in this last 1 year with more than 10,000 applications for the incentives and other reasons for which applications have been made have been cleared in a very quick manner. This has given to high satisfaction levels among the investors also. One example I can give you is regarding the global auto giant Kia Motors. Kia Motors, from the day the agreement was signed and it has been put into operation, the appointment of a facilitating officer and continuous follow-up has seen that first time in India you are seeing an auto project getting commissioned as quickly as in 18 months, because Kia is coming into production by January itself of 2019. This kind of facilitation by the state has given immense confidence to many investors, both global investors from abroad and also Indian investors. And you have seen in the repeated partnership summits which have been conducted by the state in the last 3 years, the MOUs that are getting translated into implementation is as high as 35% to 44% in different sectors. If you compare with many other states which have conducted investor partnership summits or investor summits, the translation of into reality from the MOU stage is as low as only 10 to 20%. Even a developed state like Gujarat could not cross even 25 mark also. Whereas here in Andhra Pradesh, we are able to touch as high as 44% in several sectors and on an average 35% plus. This is a vindication of the efforts put in by the state. And regarding
There's plenty that you've said, Mr. Rao. I am going to interrupt you there. If you can give me some numbers, you talked about the MOU conversion into actual investments. Can you give me a number of the kind of investments the state has been able to draw in 2017? You talked about Kia Motors and the fact that in 18 months you've been able to clear the plan for Kia to set up shop in Andhra Pradesh. Any other big ticket investments from global companies pending approval that you hope will get cleared in quick succession?
In Andhra Pradesh today, you are seeing who's who of Indian business setting up their shop in AP, because right from Pepsi to Coke to even tire giants like Apollo, Secy, and even from all mobile companies. In fact, after Noida, the biggest mobile producing cluster is in Andhra Pradesh, because as every 25 out of every 100 phones, 25 mobile phones get manufactured in Andhra Pradesh today. Close to 50 get manufactured in Noida. Only the rest of the country does only 25%. And the investment potential drawn during the investor summits has been close to 16 lakh crores, so with an employment potential of 34 lakhs.
Okay.
And to tell you the facts, the companies which have gone into production also, number of projects was as high as 721 with an investment of 1,48,000 crores. And in advanced stage of implementation, the projects are 4,31,000 crores. And in preliminary stage also, the projects which are submitting DPRs and all these are around 10 lakh crores. Therefore, this shows the confidence. You name the business house, it has set up shop. Like Tata's, their latest foray into advanced food processing unit also, smart foods, is coming into Andhra Pradesh, not any other state.
Okay.
Therefore, today the state has become one of the best destination in the investment destination in the country, and our target is to benchmark ourselves with the world standards and make Andhra Pradesh one of the best investment destinations among the top 25 in the world by next year itself.
Well, we wish you the luck with that, but let me go across to Jayesh Ranjan, Industry Secretary of the state of Telangana. Telangana getting a reform evidence score of 100%, just a tad higher than Andhra Pradesh, but where you lost out, Mr. Ranjan, is on the feedback score. Andhra Pradesh scored 86.5% and Telangana scored 83.95%, taking your total score to 98.33%. You know, what more can we expect now in terms of being able to ensure that the reforms that the state intends to take forward are actually implemented on the ground? Because the feedback score is feedback coming in from the users of your services in the state. What can we expect now? What's next? And also, if you can give me a rundown of the kind of investments you've been able to get in 2017 and what the pipeline looks like.
Good evening, Ms. Bhan. Thanks for your kind words. One thing which is very evident is that whatever reforms that we have carried out in the last 3 years, we need to consolidate, carry forward that momentum. And I must share with you that while there is definitely some slip in the feedback aspect, but the quantum of reforms that we have carried out has been really path-breaking. In fact, some of the reforms which we have done almost 3.5 years ago, no other state has even come closer to emulating them. For instance, we are the only state in the country today where an industry can start the civil construction the day he receives land without any approval, without any permission, just on the basis of a self-certificate. Similarly, we are one of the few states, and of course the very first state which introduced a law which made it mandatory to give all clearances in 15 days. And because we hold accountability to this particular law so high that we are so far the only state which penalizes officers. If their salary is deducted, if anyone is found delaying any approval or permission beyond the 15th day. And we have actually invoked this penal provision on 4 occasions.
What has been the quantum of salaries being deducted, Mr. Ranjan?
So, of course, my salary has never been deducted, but on 4 occasions, people have lost a few days of their salaries, maybe 2 days, 3 days. But while we have defaulted on 4 occasions, let me also share with you that on 6,500 occasions we have delivered. So the default rate is minuscule, and that also was there in the early days when we had introduced the reforms. So the reforms that we have introduced are really path-taking, and we intend to, of course, consolidate and carry these forward. And, of course, while we have lost to Andhra Pradesh in the narrowest possible margin, we do appreciate the fact that we need to ensure better public perception of what reforms are being carried out. And, of course, in the last 4 years, since the new state of Telangana has come into being, there are 3 sectors in which we are today leading the country. We have received the highest number of investments in the life sciences and pharmaceutical sector. Again, the highest quantum of investment in the defense and aerospace sector. In fact, the marquee names of the defense and aerospace industry have made Hyderabad their home. And we continue to be one of the leaders in IT. And now that these 3 sectors have taken off on their own, they have gained their own momentum, we are now focusing on the next batch of sectors like textiles, like food processing, like automotives, and plastics and chemicals. And what I noticed in the last couple of years particularly is that some of the very entrenched players. I mean, people would have never imagined that they will leave that particular state and come anywhere else. Many such companies, many such industries have chosen to make their next expansion in Telangana, which is very, very heartening. So we do.
Can you share some names and numbers with us, Mr. Ranjan, of entrenched players who are moving to expand in Telangana?
So, for instance, there are a couple of companies in Gujarat. Let us give you one example. Welspun, for example. It's again a company which is extremely entrenched in Gujarat. It has created a huge township there, but now they are doing a massive expansion in Telangana. There is a denim manufacturer. They are sometimes they produce more denim than even Arvind. That group is called Chiripal. They have decided to set shop in Telangana. There is again a plastics company called Supreme. They are very strong in Gujarat. They are next to Neel Kamal in the entire country. Now, instead of continuing further their expansion in Gujarat, they have chosen to do that in Hyderabad. So there are many such names. These are some names which come to me often, but I see this trend growing. Entrenched companies are now choosing to find a new base, and they are happily choosing Hyderabad in Telangana.
Can you leave me with the final number in terms of the pending investment proposals, as well as what you've been able to get in by way of FDI into the state before I go across to the Chief Secretary of Jharkhand?
Yeah, so the numbers are quite impressive. In fact, in the last 3.5 years, we have clocked around 650,000 crores of investments which have been grounded, creating an employment potential of more than 5 lakh. And some very marquee overseas investors have made Telangana their home. There's a Korean textile manufacturer. They're one of the giants in the world called Youngwan. They are setting up 8 manufacturing units in Telangana at a location called Warangal. They are the ones who manufacture. If you look at the Winter Olympics, practically every team which participates in Winter Olympics wear the apparel manufactured by Youngwan. So they are setting shops. Similarly, there's a Japanese company called Secy. They are very strong in food processing. They are setting up their units in Hyderabad, and lots of other exciting projects are in the cards.
Well, we wish you the very best of luck, Mr. Ranjan. But let me bring in Sudhir Tripathi, the Chief Secretary of Jharkhand as well. Mr. Tripathi, congratulations to you. You've come in at number 4. Your reform evidence score is 100%, like Telangana. But your feedback score is coming at 81.67%, which has taken your overall score to 97.99%. Can you give me a sense of what the pipeline looks like and where you hope to now make improvements to ensure that you get back into the top 3?
Thank you, Shereen. In fact, we have been doing consistently well insofar as ease of doing business rankings are concerned. And that is largely due to the fact of in the context of Jharkhand, because for the past 3.5 years we have had political stability, and also on account of the forward-looking and progressive leadership of our Chief Minister, Mr. Raghuvar Das. And in fact, as a follow-up to these initiatives, in 2017, we held the Global Investor Summit at Ranchi. And there we were able to execute MOUs, over 300 MOUs to the tune of investment of over 32,000 crore. And our conversion rate has also been fairly good, in the sense that as a follow-up to that, we have been holding regularly groundbreaking ceremonies in different parts of the state. And almost 100 projects are already on the ground with an investment of around 12,000 crores.
Okay.
We need to work on the feedback part.
Yes, on the feedback part specifically, sir, what more can we expect now? And can you give me a sense of any marquee global as well as domestic players who have expressed interest in wanting to set up shop in Jharkhand, and by when we can see those approvals coming in?
Most of the new players who are coming in are in the field of textile, food processing, automotive. I cannot at the moment recall any name as such. However, we have also legislated in regard to the public service delivery system, and the fact that we haven't done that well on the feedback part perhaps means that we need to be more upfront in regard to its execution.
Well, yes, that would be the case if one looks at the score that you've been able to get. But nevertheless, it is good to hear from the three of you gentlemen, and we wish you the very best of luck for next year's rankings. Kutumba Rao, Jayesh Ranjan and Sudhir Tripathi, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Those are the states that have come in the top 4, Andhra Pradesh at 1, Telangana at 2 and Jharkhand coming in at number 4, giving you a sense of what they've been able to do that has gone down well with users and ensured that they top the rankings. But for now, from all of us here on CNBC TV 18, appreciate your time. Thanks very much for watching.